Hello and welcome to Spardha Lines, your one-stop destination for the civil services preparation, UPSC, KPSC and other relevant examinations. Today we have picked up a couple of important articles which are very significant from your UPSC and your KPSC examination point of view. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article here is speaking about Bihar reservation. Bihar House passes bill raising ceiling on caste quota to 65%. This article here is important from your GS paper 2, which is Indian polity. So it can be very important when it comes to reservation. It becomes very important from your GS paper 2 polity. What is this article speaking about? The article here is speaking about the reservation quota that is being permitted in the state of Bihar. We know from one of the landmark judgments of the Supreme Court of India called as the Indra Savni case. What did the Indra Savni case say? The Indra Savni case set a limit of 50% for which reservation could be given. So anything in breach of 50% would violate the certain laws of the country, which is the reservation policy of the country. So what did Indra Savni judgment say? Indra Savni judgment clearly reiterated state would be able to provide reservation for the SC/ST community and the OBC community, but this reservation provided by the state governments should not breach the 50% bracket, which means to say that the SC and the STs will have a significant portion of the reservation, and at the same time the OBCs will also have the reservation less than 50%, and if there is 50% and more, that can lead to unconstitutional reservation paradigms that have been established by the state governments. So the point in Indra Savni is that state governments would be able to give reservation for the SC/ST community and the OBC community, but anything beyond it will require some data, and that is where we have the Tamil Nadu government. Only the Tamil Nadu government has an exemption which is about 69%. This will also be taken into picture by the Supreme Court of late, but at the same time, if you look at what happened in the state of Maharashtra, a breach of more than 50% occurred where there was a legislation that was passed by the Maharashtra government. What did this legislation say? The legislation was supposed to provide the reservation to the Maratha community. So as a result, there was a breach of this 50% that was laid in the Indra Savni judgment. So the Supreme Court in this particular case of Maratha reservation said that if it is breaching 50% and more, it will be declared as unconstitutional, and declared this as unconstitutional as well. But now what do we have? We have the state of Bihar which is passing this legislation, which means it is breaching this 50% mark that has been laid by the Indra Savni judgment. So in all likelihood, this will also be taken up by the Supreme Court of India and may be declared as unconstitutional as well. What is this article speaking about? The Bihar Assembly unanimously passed a bill to increase reservation for backward classes, extremely backward classes, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes from the existing 50% to 65%. Together with 10% economically backward class quota, the bill will push reservation in Bihar to 75%, well past the 50%. So in all likelihood, since the reservation for the OBCs and the SC/STs will breach the 50% mark, it will go to 65% mark, and as a result, in all likelihood, it may be declared as unconstitutional. According to the legislation named Bihar Reservation Amendment Bill, quota for extremely backward class will be raised from existing 18% to 25%. Backward class from 12% to 18% for scheduled caste, from 16% to 20%, and for scheduled tribes, the quota will be doubled from 1% to 2%. The existing 3% reservation for the backward class women has been scrapped. With this, what we have is this state of Bihar which has come up with the reservation which may breach the 50% barrier, and ultimately, in all likelihood, the Supreme Court will look into it and say that this is not acceptable. And generally, whenever this 50% bracket is breached, and if reservation has to be provided to a certain community, what should happen? there has to be a committee that needs to be appointed. So this particular committee will basically look at couple of issues and areas in that state. Let's say for example, when it comes to the Maratha community, there was supposed to be a committee that was appointed. Yes, this committee was appointed in the state of Maharashtra, and after the appointment of the committee, this committee will look at multiple things. What are these things? One, whether this particular community is represented in the government, whether they have the representation, are they really socially backward, so whether they have to be provided this reservation to upskill themselves and also provide the representation in the government. All this will have to be followed. But what happened in the state of Maharashtra? In the state of Maharashtra, a committee was appointed, but when the Supreme Court looked into this entire premise, it said that the Maratha community happens to be a dominant community in the state of Maharashtra. They already have huge swathes of land under their control. When they are economically empowered, socially empowered, what is the need for the reservation? This is the voice of the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court said that if there is a particular community which is a particular caste group which is already dominant enough in that state, why do we have to provide them the reservation? If they have enough representation, they have huge swathes of land, they are economically empowered as well. So only when you are able to give me the data which says that they are socially backward, economically backward, educationally backward, and they do not have the representation at the state level, then maybe we can consider. But in the state of Maharashtra, since they are economically, socially, educationally upward, why do they require the reservation? And as a result, the Supreme Court in the Maratha reservation case did not accept it and declared this legislation as unconstitutional. But there is an exemption in the state of Tamil Nadu, and in all likelihood in the next few days they may also take up that case as well. So we will have more editorials and columns with respect to this legislation. We will take them up elaborately once we have these articles being discussed as part of our editorial. But as of now, only understand that they have breached this 50% mark. Only the state of Tamil Nadu has this exception, which is about 69% right now, and Maharashtra's legislation was recently declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court of India. Now let's look into the next article. This article says online gambling ban won't apply to poker rummy, says the High Court. The Madras High Court refused to strike down the Tamil Nadu Prohibition of Online Bill and Regulation of Online Games Act of 2022. First, we have to understand that when it comes to gambling, where is the gambling? That is, we have the 7th schedule. In the 7th schedule, what we have is the union list. Then what we have is the state list, and ultimately what we have is the concurrent list. So when it comes to the gambling, where is it placed? It is placed in the state list. So it is the state governments who would be able to come up with a law and ultimately control gambling related issues. So state governments can also make laws. That is why each state has its own set of rules and regulations. For example, in the state of Goa, they may allow gambling, they may allow casinos as well. But let's say in the state of Tamil Nadu, they may not allow gambling. Why? That is because you have a law. And that law clearly says that since it is placed in 7th schedule in the state list, states should be able to come up with laws. So if state allows gambling related activities, they may have such organizations and such companies coming up and allowing gambling related activities in states. For example, Goa allows casinos as well as gambling. So you have multiple companies, organizations coming and operating in the state of Goa. However, couple of other states may not allow as well. That is because this is in the state list. Now there are two concepts that we have to understand. One is what is called as the game of chance. The other is what is called as the game of skill. What is this game of chance as well as game of skill? When we speak about game of chance, what exactly happens? It is this particular game where a lot of luck factor comes into picture. What is this luck factor? Let's say for example, you are playing Andar Bahar. What is this Andar Bahar? There is a game of cards where you say that this is the number that you want to that you wish that it comes on your side. So let's say for example, I say 3 should come on my side. You do not know what exactly is the skill that is being applied. So the person starts sharing these particular cards. So the minute this 3 comes to your side, you will get the money. But if the 3 card goes to the other person, that person gets the money. Is there any skill that is involved? Is there any thought process that is involved? Is there any intellectual capacity that is involved? Is there any intelligence power that is involved? No, it is purely by luck that a person will get the card, or the other person may get the card. So in all those cases where it comes with luck, that is called as the game of chance. So in game of chance, state governments would be able to regulate it and even ban it as well. But let's say for example, we have the game of skill. What is the game of skill? Let's say for example, we have something called as the rummy. In rummy, it depends on the intelligence of the person. It depends on the experience of the person. It depends on how well the person is able to analyze his cards and ultimately play that game. So in all those cases, if it involves skill, then state governments should compulsorily allow it, and they should not be coming up with laws to ban it. So in the case of state of Andhra Pradesh was Satyanarayana and others, Satyanarayana judgment, the Supreme Court specifically tested the game of rummy on the principle of skill versus chance, and held that rummy was not a game entirely based on chance like the 3-card game, that is the flush brag, etc., which are games of pure chance. It has held that rummy was a game involving a preponderance of skill rather than chance. In Dr. K.R. Lakshmanan was the state of Tamil Nadu, it was also held that horse racing was a game of skill and playing it for money will not be illegal, and that is why number of states have also allowed it as well. What do we understand from this? We can come to a conclusion, and it leads to a conclusion that game of skill will be allowed in all states. Game of skill cannot be restricted by the state governments, but game of chance can be restricted by the state governments. So game of skill will be allowed in all states. So according to the Madras High Court, it clearly said that rummy, even if it is online, it is a game of skill, and as a result, it should be allowed to be played, said the High Court of Madras. Now there is a question that can be asked. So there are a couple of states which do not allow gambling related activities. So a question automatically raises, should gambling be allowed in a state or not? So what do we think? Let's understand the arguments in greater detail. We look at the pros, we will also look at the cons. What are the pros? Let's say the gambling activities is allowed in a state. What are the advantages of it? If gambling activity is allowed, there would be revenue that is generated for the state. How? Let's say for example, if there is no gambling activity that are present, everything will go underground, and when it goes underground, you would have few people who would be controlling the online gaming section, and you would have few people who would be controlling the gaming in that particular area. Everything goes underground, and there are no taxes that are paid. If it is legalized, if it is legitimized, if it is given a legal compartment as well, in that case, then revenue generation happens to the state. So for every gambling activity that takes place, the state will also generate revenue as well, and as a result, this revenue that is generated can also be used for other welfare programs as well. If it is not regulated, then everything will go underground. So there will only be few people who would be making money out of it. This could lead to losses to the state exchequer. And when the gambling activities is allowed by the state, you will have employment generation as well. This becomes a means for the livelihood as well. When there is a casino, or then say for example, there is a particular hub where these activities are regulated, it will create ancillary activities and economic activities as well. All these will ultimately create this idea that the revenue generation happens to the state, there is livelihood, there is employment related activities, and at the same time it will also provide large scale employment activities. But there are cons as well, there are concerns as well. When people are not making enough for their livelihood, they still go for these sort of, let's say for example, casinos, or for example other related activities, because they want to make quick money. Money is not easy to come by, it requires years of dedication and also skill as well. When there are games that are being propagated like these, people would want to make quick money as well, and they do not look at investing, they do not look at how this money can be operated for their family and for their livelihood. They simply come over and start investing, let's say for example in horse racing, or for example in other games like rummy or poker, just because they have a money with an enticement that they'll be able to make quick money. They will come up to this particular place, and as a result it is their family which suffers. How are the gambling laws world over? In Europe, the biggest markets are the UK, Spain, Germany, which have legal and regulated gambling, both land-based casinos and online betting. France and Iceland have banned online casinos but allow land-based casinos. In Canada and Mexico, they have legalized all forms of gambling. In the US, some states allow gambling. Nevada allows all forms of gambling. In Africa, over 30 countries have legalized all forms of gambling. South Africa is a well-known hotspot for casinos, and in Australia, land-based and online casinos are under legal lens. Asia, gambling was outlawed in Singapore since 2014. Japan has recently allowed land-based casinos. China, all forms of gambling except for physical sports betting are outlawed. So these are some of the examples world over. So remember, gambling happens to be a part of the state list. We did look at what is game of chance and game of skill. We did look at the judgments. We did look at the pros and the cons, and what we also looked at is how is it applicable in couple of other countries as well. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Nagaland not for 33% quota for women in urban local bodies. There are two aspects here. One is with respect to Article 371A, and there are similar such articles that can be asked in your preliminary examination. The second is that with respect to 33% quota for the urban local bodies. Until now, 33% quota for the urban local bodies for the women were not mandated, but now the Nagaland Assembly has unanimously passed a bill seeking to reserve 33% seats in urban local bodies for women. Previously, it was not allowed primarily because of the cultural practices, because of the autonomy that was given to the state of Nagaland, but now they have accepted, and this could lead to women empowerment, where women would be able to contest in about 33% reservation seats that is reserved for them. They can also compete in other seats as well, but in these 33% only the women would be able to compete, and this will lead to the empowerment of the women. That is one part. The second part is with respect to the article itself. So 371J is with respect to Nagaland. So Parliament can't legislate in matters of Naga religion or social practices, the Naga customary law and procedure, administration of civil and criminal justice involving decisions according to Naga customary law. So one is with respect to Article 371A, and this was introduced as part of the 13th Amendment Act of 1962. Then we have Article 371, which is to do with the state of Maharashtra and Gujarat. Then we have Article 371F, which is to do with the state of Sikkim. It was introduced via 36th Amendment Act of 1975. Then we have Article 371B, which is for the state of Assam, and this was introduced in 22nd Amendment Act of 1969. Arunachal Pradesh. 371H, this was introduced in 55th Amendment Act. Karnataka. 371J, 98th Amendment Act of 2012. This is for the Hyderabad Karnataka region. 371D for the state of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. It was introduced via 32nd Constitutional Amendment 1973, and it was substituted by the Andhra Pradesh Reorganization Act of 2014. 371J is for the state of Mizoram, and 371C is for the state of Manipur. There can be a match of the following questions where they will ask you an amendment and also say when was this amendment introduced, or they will give you an article and they can also ask which state is it applicable for. So remember all these parameters, which is very, very, very important for your preliminary examination point of view. Now let's look into the next article. This article says 80 fishermen released by Pak to be brought by Gujarat today. What is this article all about? This article here is speaking about the fishermen issue. What exactly happens? These fishermen along the state of Gujarat usually enter along the border areas of Pakistan, not knowing that it belongs to the Pakistan waters, and when they pass after the Pakistan coastal waters, they are captured by the Pakistani Navy and other forces, and they are taken behind prisons. Similarly, we also have Pakistani fishermen as well. They also breach these Indian coastal waters, enter into the Indian coastal waters. They are also captured by the Indian forces, and as a result, fishermen from India are in the prisons of Pakistan. Fishermen from Pakistan are in the prisons of India, and that is what this article speaks about, the fishermen issue. First, what we have to understand is, why do these people enter into the coastal waters of each other countries? When we speak about what exactly happens, we know for the fact that when it comes to fishing, it is a means of the livelihood. So with the fishing activities increasing over a period of time, number of people venture into the oceans and ultimately make fishing a source of livelihood. Because they are not able to get the fish near the shore, they enter into the deep waters. So why do they enter into the deep waters? Because it is not available near the shore, and that is why they enter into the deep waters. When they enter into the deep waters, we do not have any demarcation that is present. We do not know which is Pakistan border, we do not know which is Indian border. So they enter into the Pakistani waters primarily because they do not have these understanding of the border areas along the waters, and as a result, since they do not have the GPS tracking installed on their ships as well as on their boats, they enter into the Pakistani waters and they are subsequently arrested. Similarly, these Pakistani fishermen also do not have the GPS trackers, so on and so forth. They enter into the Indian waters, they are arrested by the Indian forces. So who arrests them? The Maritime Security Agency of Pakistan is responsible for the arrest of Indian fishermen when they reportedly enter the Pakistani waters, while for India, the Coastal Guard, the Border Security Force, Customs or the Indian Navy does the same to the Pakistani fishermen. Why do they enter the Pakistani waters? There is another reason as well. One is because of the pollution. So what is happening along the coastal areas? You have number of industries along the coastal areas. They dump the waste into the water, and because the shore waters are polluted, they should enter deep into the ocean so that it is not polluted. And these fishes also enter into the deep waters. That is, when you look at what's happening along the shore areas, it is warm in nature. Because of all these pollutants that are added, the nutrients that are added, fish does not want to live in the warm areas. So what do the fishes do? They enter into the deep waters, or you can also say they enter into the center of the oceanic waters. That is primarily because it is comparatively cold. So on one side, there is excessive pollution along the shore areas, which is why the fishes are present inside they are present at the center of the oceanic waters, and at the same time, when you consider near the shore, the water is comparatively warmer as well. So fishes want to stay in cold waters, so they move away from the shore area. So concentration of industrial corridors like chemical and pharmaceutical units in Vapi and Ankaleshwar, petrochemicals in Vadodara, refineries and power plants in Jamnagar, power plants and ports in Kutch have rendered the sea coast highly polluted, and scientists also attest to warming forcing fisher further from the shore, which is why you have these fishermen who enter into those areas and ultimately they get arrested by the Pakistani forces, and similarly Pakistani fishermen are also arrested by the Indian forces as well. So when they enter these waters, they are ultimately arrested by the officials and they are thrown behind bars, and for a long period of time they languish in the jails. It takes years for them to ultimately prove their innocence and come back to their home and the native countries. What are the major issues? The major issues is the judicial process is very slow and countries do not trust each other, and as a result, these fishermen who might have entered innocently into the waters ultimately reap the sufferings of it, and they are the major sufferers. In order to overcome these issues, confidence building measures and gestures of peace and goodwill has been initiated by both India and Pakistan. Judicial committee has been appointed comprising of 4 retired judges from either nation to resolve the disputes and obtain the release of imprisoned fishermen, and there have been census of fishermen that has been undertaken in western Gujarat, and Indian Coastal Guard has also begun installing track devices in the fishing boat so that they do not breach the waters of each other countries. So these are some of the measures that have been taken. So in the present situation, 80 fishermen from different parts of Gujarat were released from jail in Karachi in Pakistan, and a state government team from here has reached Punjab to receive them. So what these are the fishermen issues. They go there and they enter into the waters because for the livelihood, and they do not know which is our waters and their waters. They get arrested and they languish in the jails, and after a long period of time they are released, is what we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says more than 15 products from Uttarakhand bagged GI tags, from a local brick tea to textiles made from Himalayan plant. Over 15 products from Uttarakhand have been given the coveted GI tag. What is this GI tag? Geographical indication. What is this geographical indication? As the very name denotes, if there is a product which is specific to that particular location, has the authenticity of the product because there are circumstances and incidences that have happened in the past, this product which is explicitly made by that company or in that state, to ensure that there is authenticity of that particular product, that there is no copies of it, what is being given is the geographical indication. For example, if you take the example of Mysore Pak, where is Mysore Pak famous? It is famous in the state of Karnataka. So Mysore Pak is given a GI tag from the state of Karnataka. Can a company, or let's say for example an institution, or for example any other person claim that Mysore Pak happens to be a geographical tag of Uttarakhand or for example Himachal Pradesh? No. And that is why geographical indication is restricted to a specific place. So as a result, Uttarakhand's Berina tea, highly sought after by London tea houses and tea blenders, is made from the leaves of a plant that grows wild in the Himalayas, which are then compressed into a solid mass, has been given the GI tag. So Berina tea, where is it produced? It is produced in the state of Uttarakhand, and this has its own specificities and advantages, and it has its own flavor as well. So this has been given the GI tag. Similarly, we have Bichu Butti fabrics made from the Himalayan nettle fibers, which was also on the list, which bagged the GI tag. The Uttarakhand Manduva, a finger millet grown in Garhal and Kumaon, which is part of the staple diet in many parts of the state, and Jangora, a homegrown millet, were also on the list. These were some of the products which were given the GI tag by the registration office of the geographical indication. These are very, very important from your GS paper 3 economy. Now let's look into the next article. This article says dinner in the forest. The article here is speaking about the Tippeshwar Wildlife Sanctuary or the Tippeshwar Forest. The Tippeshwar Wildlife Sanctuary is situated in Yavatmal area, that is an isolated national park in Maharashtra. This sanctuary is placed in Pandarkwada district of Yavatmal that encloses 148.63 km. The sanctuary is widespread for its exotic hill undulating territory. The Tippeshwar Wildlife Sanctuary is found in its name from the goddess Tippai that is sited near Tippeshwar village in the sanctuary area. Which are the rivers in and around this forest? What we have is Purna, Krishna, Bhima, Tapti, which irrigate the sanctuary from all angles. The Tippeshwar Wildlife Sanctuary area is completely a basalt area that is constructed by the blast of lava a century back, and this sanctuary has couple of other forests in and around it, which includes Nagzira National Forest, Tadbori Andheri Tiger Reserve, Bamraga Wildlife Reserve, Chaprala Wildlife Sanctuary, Navigon National Park, Pench National Park, Bor Wildlife Sanctuary, Paisinga National Park, and the tigers from these reserves generally live in the Tippeshwar Wildlife Sanctuary. So what did we understand? Tippeshwar Wildlife Sanctuary is in the state of Maharashtra. Where is it located? In Yavatmal area. Then there are rivers in and around it, which includes Purna, Krishna, Bhima and Tapti, and we also have other forests in and around it, and this can be possibly be asked in your preliminary examination. So the Tippeshwar forest is in the state of Maharashtra. Now let's look into the next article. This article says the Agartala-Akhaura rail link. This article is important from your GS paper 2, which is international relations. What is this article speaking about? The article here is speaking about the inauguration of the rail link between Agartala and Akhaura, which is present in this country of Bangladesh. So we have Agartala, which is in Tripura. So what we now have is a railway link which connects Agartala with that of Akhaura in Bangladesh. So what are the advantages of it? The advantages of it is, now that we have a railway, we have an alternative channel to connect to Bangladesh. That's the first one. Second is the distance will also be reduced as well. Earlier it used to take a lot of time. Now the distance has been reduced, so they'll be able to reach in a much faster way. Third, we would be able to export and import the products as well. So the export and import of the products will be easy as well, and we would also be able to connect to number of seaports between India and Bangladesh at a faster pace. So that happens to be another advantage, and this will also lead to economic activities where there will be more exports and imports, and this will lead to employment and export related activities. So this happens to be a 12.24 kilometer long range constituting about 6.78 dual gauge. This starts from Tripura. It links Akhaura in its immediate neighborhood, and we also have another place called as Nischintapura. Remember, Nischintapura in West Tripura would serve as the international immigration station that will provide facilities of immigration related scrutiny, and additionally the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs had declared Nischintapura as a land custom station. So Nischintapura happens to be the land custom station, and it refers to a notified place meant for clearance of goods imported or exported by land or the inland water. Since we are importing and exporting the products, someone has to verify it. It is at this point of Nischintapura in Western Tripura which will verify what are the imports that are coming to the country, what are the exports that we are making from our country. So this happens to be very important from your preliminary examination point of view. And we also have 5 broad gauge connectivity routes which are operating entailing links with Bangladesh, all of them from West Bengal. These include Gede railway station to Darsana, Benopol to Petropol, Singhabad to Rohanpur, Radhikpur to Birol, and Haldbari to Chilahatti. These are the other 5 which are very important from your preliminary examination point of view. So all that you have to understand is that there are advantages with this mechanism that has been initiated between India and Bangladesh. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Aadhaar authentication continues to face glitches. We have discussed about this Aadhaar glitches in the past as well. To tell you in brief what happens, let's say for example a person is seeking a subsidy. A person goes to the public distribution system. He is part of the food security program. He is seeking for wheat or the rice from one of the societies under the public distribution system. So what should he do? He should place his thumb on this POS machine, and it should be able to understand that it is so and so person and confirm that it is so and so person, and then this person will be provided the PDS benefits as well. But what happens in most of the cases, this person's authentication is not authenticated. So as a result, they are not able to confirm if it is the same person who is seeking the benefits out of the public distribution system. Another major issue is, let's say for example, you would want to update your Aadhaar or you want to make use of the Aadhaar. What does the Aadhaar do? The Aadhaar immediately sends you an OTP to ensure that there is two-factor authentication and validate and verify it is you who is asking for this service. But what happens in most of the situations, the OTP that is sent from the server of the Aadhaar does not come to your phone, and as a result you become the major sufferer. So on one side, the POS machines are not able to authenticate, verify, validate that it is so and so person. On the other side, even if you want to bring a change, you want to seek some service, you are still not able to do so, primarily because your OTP is not reaching your phone on time, and that particular service is not ultimately concluded or become successful. These are some of the issues that are faced in the Aadhaar authentication, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about psoriasis. What is psoriasis? This happens to be an autoimmune skin disease that leads to a rapid buildup of the skin cells. How does it operate? There are different ways or different types of psoriasis. Plaque psoriasis, gillate psoriasis, inverse psoriasis, pustular psoriasis, generalized pustular psoriasis, erythrodermic psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis. So the plaque psoriasis happens to be the common one. Symptoms include thick raised red patches with white dead skin buildup. The plaques usually show up on the elbows, knees, scalp and lower back. Sometimes they are itchy, they also crack and bleed as well. What exactly happens? Since it is an autoimmune disease, the body will start assuming that there is some other entity that is allowing, and it will activate its immune system. Once it starts activating its immune system, more number of skin cells will be activated. There will be white patches which will be created on the skin, leading to what is called as the psoriasis. So this year themes for the World Psoriasis Day happens to be access for all, which means dermatologists treating psoriasis say lack of awareness about the condition and treatment leads to stigmatization, even pushing people to consider ending their lives. So this happens to be an autoimmune disease that manifests rashes usually on the face, elbows, knees and also spreads to other part as well. This is what we have to understand with respect to psoriasis. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.